So today I want to discuss two short topics. As usual, the first topic will be accountability, especially in terms of when we learn jazz guitar, or it can be when we learn any instrument or even another type of hobby. But jazz guitar is, of course, the topic that I prefer, so we'll talk about this. And after we will discuss the B-flat blues in its simplest form. The thing I realized, I thoroughly enjoy doing song analysis, as you may have heard in other podcasts like Stella by Starlight and Solar. And I just realized today that I never did a real analysis of the B-flat blues progression. So we'll start from scratch and build it from there. Welcome to Jazz Guitar Lessons, where we help guitarists learn jazz faster, express themselves more fluently, and have fun along the way. My name is Mark, and if you're looking to learn jazz, form better practice habits, and especially if you enjoy a French accent, make sure to subscribe. So the first topic, in terms of accountability, it's something that I realize is important more and more through my coaching, my personal teaching, to trying to show other people stuff, especially in terms of jazz guitar. Accountability means that you have something that you owe somebody in a certain way. And my personal realization, this is very personal. I don't really like to talk about me in terms of teaching, but this is the case. I realize that it's easy to deceive ourselves more than anybody else. So I would like to encourage you today in this podcast to find ways where you can be accountable, especially if you can get accountable towards other people with your progress. By this I mean, if you have a training program and you want to go to the gym, for instance, you want to get healthy, you want to lose weight or build muscle or, get better at the sports that you practice, you will get a private coach most likely. And then it becomes so easy to go to the gym. Or if you have your gym pal, Bob, you go with Bob every Tuesday at 7, you go to the gym together, do some treadmill. It becomes so easy. But when you do it on your own, relying solely on self-discipline and this whole momentum thing, after a while you quit. And I don't know who listens to this podcast, but I'm convinced that some of you, and that includes me, have had monthly gym memberships that would just collect dust, right? You have the membership, you pay, but you don't go. So that's what I'm trying to get at in terms of jazz guitar. You have to find ways where you go to the guitar gym, pick it up, practice, learn, and get better, because that's what you want to do, right? So here's a few things to keep in mind if you want to be more accountable. First suggestion is to have an external motivation for playing your guitar. And that could be, for instance, being in a band where you have to play new standards every now and then. Say every Thursday I have my band practice. It's with bass, drums, and guitars, and we don't have gigs, but at least we learn one new standard every week. This is a very, very good motivation, because if you get to the rehearsal and you can't play the standard that you decided upon, then you're in trouble. So that's one way to do it. Another way is, and this is a very common, typical way, you should be playing with a fellow guitarist, so somebody that's at about your level. If you're lucky, you can get somebody that's better than you to jam and play blues and standards and stuff like that. Or otherwise, you can get another musician that is a beginner at a certain instrument. It doesn't mean that it's a beginner musician per se, but it can be a beginner bass player or piano player. And this is great, by the way. If you get a bass player or piano player, you can accompany, but you can also be accompanied by the bass's comping or the piano's comping. This is great for you to solo over. So I would, be careful if you jam with sax players. What you'll wind up doing is playing chords all the time. Although this might wind up being what you have to work on the most, I don't know. But, this is another thing. So start a band, for instance, or have a fellow guitarist or another instrument, another player that's at about the same level as you are right now. Another thing you might want to do is take private lessons. And, of course, I'm preaching my own thing, right? I've been teaching for 15 years now, and I've been realizing this slowly. The accountability thing in terms of lessons, it's not always a good idea, because I've had several students in the past come to me and say, I used to take lessons with this local guy every week, 45 minutes, and what happens is that you play during the lesson and you practice the day of the lesson or the night before, just to show your teacher that you've been practicing this stuff, and then that's it, right? You're accountable, but you're only accountable to a certain extent, because he's not going to give you schmuck for not having practiced the stuff, right? So it's what I've been trying to do personally through the website right now. I'm trying to refine the coaching program, so I want to get students that are more serious and more accountable, which led me to, through the years, kind of polish this service for coaching jazz guitar that I've been offering recently. It's really fun. So it's another way you might want to get more accountable, to have more accountability to your playing. Nevertheless, the lessons might not be exactly what you're looking for. For instance, if you have really good discipline by yourself, like your self-discipline, and there's a local community of jazz players that are good, quote unquote, say better than you, if there's a jam session, you can give yourself a challenge, and prior to even attend, write this down on a piece of paper, say, I'm going to attend the jam session 3 times, not even bring a guitar, and then the 4th time I will be playing one tune with those guys. B-flat blues, I don't know, Autumn Leaves, whatever, Blue Bossa, whatever tune that you find that's easy for you. You will be scared to death, of course, but if you have good discipline to do this, you'll see you'll be making strides, because you have some sort of external motivation and something that you have to be accountable for. You don't want to look like a fool at a jam session, so you'll be shedding, hopefully like a maniac, or depending on your time investment, right? So that's all little things that you can think of. Starting a band, jamming duo with another player, getting private coaching through the jazzguitarlessons.net website, or if you have good discipline, jam sessions, go out, listen. Of course, this only goes so far. So it's my little thing about self-discipline and your motivation. When we first get started, those first 2 or 3 weeks when you go to the gym, it's really easy to go, because we're still on the first burst of energy. Think of launching a shuttle into space. You need a big burst of energy at first, right? But you don't always need this energy if you establish some sort of a routine. And that's what happens, which is a bit of a problem. I get people that practice a lot during 2 or 3 weeks, and then they don't stop practicing, but it becomes more erratic. And it's because you did not use your personal self-discipline and motivation to establish a routine or a plan, a training program that you can come back to. And it stems from, setting goals and having a step-by-step plan to achieve your goals, right? So just be careful. Your first burst of energy, it's not going to last forever either. So take that into consideration. You want to think for the long term how to establish a routine. And lastly, and this is probably the best idea ever to be accountable, try to get out there, whatever your level, and book yourself an event where you have to perform in public. And you will both hate me and love me at the same time for saying this. It can be a barbecue with friends, say, 4th of July, that just passed, by the way. It can be a party. It can be just a family reunion, or it can be a cocktail. If you have a cocktail hour to play and you say, oh my God, now we're a jazz trio, and here we go. We have to play 10 standards during this time. If you book yourself in advance and you have, say, 2-3 months notice, it's going to be the best time of your life. It's going to be the most improvement you've made, because you need to line up tunes, to learn chord progressions, to learn scales, to rehearse them, etc. So that would be the last and probably the best thing that you could do. It's not always easy, but you could be surprised. Just walk down to your local coffee shop. They have paintings on the wall and different artists, and just say, I have a jazz trio. Let's do it. And that's this going to kick your butt. Really, it's going to be a really good experience for you. Nice. So that's it for accountability. Wrap up. Try to find ways where you feel like you owe something to somebody else in a good way, in terms of your jazz guitar improvement and the way you want to perform in public.
Hey guys, just a quick note. If you're enjoying this content and you're eager to boost your own jazz guitar playing, then connect with us. We've transformed the jazz skills of thousands of guitarists. You can find the link in the description or head directly over to jazzguitarlessons.net to begin your journey. All right, let's dive back into the episode.
Now let's talk about B-flat blues and do a quickie run through the different progressions. So there's several questions on the website, on YouTube or by email, and the thing is, what's the difference between my Chuck Berry blues, if I know this stuff, or that blues that we hear B.B. King play and Eric Clapton play, and now we're playing jazz blues, and it should be the same thing. Well, kind of. It has the same roots, but let me just see here. Okay, so if you want to go to a jazz jam session, you're not likely to be playing like, this type of blues. This is not what's going to happen. So I want to run through in the podcast today what you can find on jazzguitar-lessons.net/jazz-guitar-blues.html. It's a web page, and it explains 5 of the most common blues progressions in jazz in order of complexity. So there are 3 big red letters, and the one we're going to do today is B flat. So you can download the B flat blues PDF and follow along. If you're listening to this in your car, it's not recommended at all, but whenever you can take a look. So I want to go through the first 3 progressions, which brings you far enough so you can attend pretty much any jam session in America and say, I want to play B flat blues, and you'll be fine, right? So it's how we jazz it up so we get to a point where it sounds like a jazzy blues instead of a typical 1-4-5 blues. All right, so progression number 1. In the PDF it says the most basic 12-bar blues, 3 chords, 1, 4, and 5. And why we say 1, 4, and 5? Because 1 is the B flat note. And if we play the scale, like a major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is E flat. So the note E flat represents the 4. We build the 7th chord on the 4th degree. And we do the same thing on the 5th degree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. So the basic idea is that those chords are dominant 7 chords. So B flat 7, E flat 7, and F 7. And that's all we need in order to be playing on the basic 1-4-5, say, I said B.B. King or this type of stuff. So what I'll be doing now is using a metronome and playing just shell voicings. So voicings that sound basically like this. Root 7th and 3rd, or root 3rd and 7th. I'm not going to give the fingerings now because I can't display them on the screen for you, but at least you get an idea of how it sounds. So let me just play once through it. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Just quarter notes. Last 4 bars. And that's it, we're done. Back to the top. So what's happening here is, you notice there's 4 full bars of just a 1 chord, which is a B flat chord. Then there's 2 bars of 4, the 4 chord, 4 Roman numeral, E flat, and 2 bars of 4 and 2 bars of 1. And then there's the last section, we can call the turnaround if you want, where it goes through 5, 4, and 1. So I believe it's better to look at the blues and think of it as 3 sections of 4 bars. So the first section is obviously just 1, as in the 1, the tonic, the 1 chord, the B flat chord. Then the second kind of section of 4 bars goes to 4 and back to 1. And the last section is where everything turns around, where we get this cadence, where we feel that it's wrapping up, that's it, it's over. So there's not much to be understood in that blues in terms of theory, and it just so happens that you've been hearing this stuff on the radio for the past, 80 years? I don't know. So it's not necessary that we spend so much time on it. But we can look at progression number 2 and 3 and get much more out of it. So progression number 2 in the PDF, which I called a simplified jazz blues. We'll just outline the theory and the difference between the first one and this one. Well, first of all, instead of sticking to the one chord during 4 bars, like 1, 2, 3, 4, another one, that's 4 bars, it's very long, we go straight up and alternate with the 4 chords immediately. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. See, we go to the E flat chord immediately. That's the first thing that's happening. The other main difference, that there's a 2-5 cadence, and this you can also read on the jazzguitarlessons.net website. You get a page which is called, what's the name of the page? The No Nonsense Guide to Jazz Harmony, I think it's called. And you'll see what a 2-5-1 is, what a 2-5 is, and etc. So in the last 4 bars, the turnaround, instead of sounding like this, which is your typical, rock blues, instead of sounding like this, it sounds like 2, 5, 2, back to 1. 2, 5, 1. That's it. So let me play it just once through so you get an idea. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Bar 5. Back to B flat. The turnaround with the 2-5. 2, 5, 1, 5, 1. That's it. So you see at the end we still have this little F7, this 5 chord to go back to the top, because 5 really wants to resolve to 1. So what's the deal with this 2-5? Now you see, instead of having all dominant chords, we get one that is a minor 7th. And this is a typical 2-5 cadence, the 2 being the C note in the key of B flat, so 1, 2, and the F being the 5 note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in terms of diatonic harmony, in terms of how chords work together, the 2 is a minor chord. So that's why we need minor 7, C minor 7, the F7, to go back to our B flat, which is our 1. So if you can play this already, even with the simplest chords, the chord grips that you know, you're already halfway to playing a full-fledged jazz blues. And you see, it's not that complicated. We just exchanged the last 4 bars and the first 4 bars to being more hip, if you want. So let's jump right away to the third progression, which in the PDF I called the most common jazz blues. And I wrote the subtitle, The Secondary Dominance, and there's a 1, 6, 2, 5 at the end. So this one, there's a video on jazzguitarlessons.net, which is called, I think, Jazzing Up Your Blues with the 6th chord. And now you see there's a G7 chord appearing, and even I wrote down G7 flat 9. But for today, everything that deals with 9s and 11, 13s, we don't worry about that for now. So ignore the flat 9, ignore the B flat 7, flat 9, G7, flat 9. Just think of the 7. So B flat 7, G7. And G is the 6, right? If you learn your B flat major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, G7 is your 6th chord. And the reason behind this, which is explained in the video, is that the G7 is the 5 chord of the C minor. But it's the 6th chord of the B flat. So in any case, it sounds like if you look at B flat G, C, F, B flat G, C, F, this is some sort of a turnaround. I'm playing the last 2 bars over and over now. 1, 2, G7, C minor, F7, B flat, G7, C minor 7, F7, etc. So we impose this within the form. So if you look at bars 7, 8, 9, and 10, they're exactly the same as bar 11 and 12, but in a telescoping nature. So this you really have to look at the PDF or write it down to see it. So the only difference between the previous progression, number 2, and this one is really that G7 chord that brings everything into a new context. And if you listen to guys like Joe Pass, Wes Montgomery, and Pat Metheny, those guys, that's really where they play really interesting lines, because there's some sort of resolution needed. So let me just play it once together, or if you want to play along, and I'll let you go after. Progression number 3. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Watch out for the G7. G7 now. C minor 7. F. And we're done. Yeah. So, as you can see, we started from a 1-4-5 blues, which only had 3 chords, 3 dominant chords, and now we added a 2-5 at the end. We added that 6 chord, that G7, and this little turnaround 1-6-2-5, and we pretty much got from what's very, very traditional, very straightforward, to a more hyper, kind of hip, jazzy sound. And that's really the beginning of trying to play more chords and play more interesting lines within your jazz blues, is by having to run through different changes, right? So I hope this helps. In any case, this was very 10 minutes. Let's do an analysis of chords on the blues, but you can find a whole bunch of information. There's a master blues page on jazzguitarlessons.net. There are several videos where you can dig into the harmony and how to build lines over those. And I will let you go. I'll see you in the next podcast. My name is Mark from jazzguitarlessons.net. Improve your jazz guitar playing with a real teacher. Take care.